Alright, so we're going to be tier listing all the Jhin regression and Jhin blocking perks. We did do all the aura rating perks like 2 months ago. I was going to put this out sooner, but I kind of forgot about it, honestly. So let's hop right into this. First up, we got Color Brine from the Onryo. So whenever you kick a generator, you make it regress at 125%. And anytime a survivor hits a good skill check on it, you get a loud noise notification. This lasts for 60 seconds. Honestly, one of the worst perks in the game. We put it in C tier just because its info value. Its Jhin regression is absolutely awful. 125% is basically non-existent. So I think Arditha just did a video. He said over the whole 6 minutes it takes to regress the Jhin, it'll save you 6 seconds. So yeah. Then we got Pain Res from the Artist. I mean, does it even need an introduction? It's got nerfed several times from when I first started playing, but in its current form, whenever you hook a survivor on a scorge hook for the first time, the generator with the most progress explodes, losing 20% instantly. The reason why this is so good is because it targets the progress Jhin that's the highest, and it's just hooking a survivor. Like, yes, it being a scorch hook definitely holds it back since there's only 4, and you gotta rely on the RNG of the hook spawns. But, I mean, you're gonna be downing survivors anyways, and chances are pretty good at some point you'll get them to a scorch hook, so it's not too bad. And it hits the most important Jhin right away, so it's obviously a great perk. Up next, we got Thanatophobia from Nurse. Oh, man. I think we put Thanatophobia down here. So anytime a survivor's injured, generators and healing is 2% slower. And then once you injure the 4th survivor, there's an additional 12%, so it'll be 20% if all 4 are injured. On Legion and Plague, this perk is like A tier, S tier, you know, depending on the survivors. On every other killer in the game, it's probably one of the worst perks in the game because most of the time it's going to be at the 4 to 6% range, the 2 to 4 range on most killers, 4 to 6 for the most part on Legion and Plague, but you'll have the survivors healing here and there, so even that way they don't face the whole 20%. It's just not that great in my opinion. Much better options. Alright, this one I included in here. It's going to be kind of controversial. You don't have to consider this one. You can ignore this one, but I'm putting Devour Hope in A tier. Devour Hope has nothing to do with generators. It has nothing to do with blocking, no regression, nothing. But why I consider it part of the slowdown category is as soon as you get that 3rd token that allows you to insta-down survivors, obviously, insta-downing a survivor or attacking at all reveals that they're cursed by Devour Hope. All survivors will immediately stop working on Jhins. It never fails. I never see survivors continue to work on Jhins unless their Jhin's at like 99 when it's revealed. I mean, they have to get rid of this because if they let it get 2 more tokens, you can instantly kill any survivor. Of course, it has to be gotten rid of, and that's why I consider it part of the slowdown. I have it at A tier because it's a Hex perk. Hex perk can be wiped off the face of the planet before it gets any power at all. The fact that you can potentially kill a survivor who hasn't been hooked at all, and it has that slowdown effect. So you don't have to include this if you don't want to, but I thought I would just because it's basically a slowdown perk in my opinion. Oh, that's from Hag, by the way. Up next, we got Dying Light from Michael Myers. Now, I feel like people hate on this perk a little bit too much. This is definitely more along the lines of a win more perk. Anytime you hook a survivor that's not the obsession, everybody becomes slower at healing and repairing by 3%. So if you somehow manage to get 10 hooks, that'll be 33% slower, or 30, my bad, I'm terrible at math, 30% slower at Jhins and healing. But the Obsession heals 33% faster. That's where I got the 33% from. And they work on Jhins at the normal speed. Now, people say this is a huge downside. It's really not. You know, a heal is 16 seconds, and if you have this, which makes it 33% faster because you're the Obsession, it makes it like 9 seconds, which is faster, don't get me wrong. It's not, you obviously don't want a perk that harms you, but I think once you get it rolling, the slowdown, it does far outweighs the little buff the Obsession gets. And then you could combine it with an Obsession switching perk to make it even better. But yeah, definitely a better perk than what people give it credit for. Up next is Merciless Storm. This one's a tough one. This is like S tier on Doctor, and probably like, I'd say B tier on everyone else. Whenever a Jhin hits the 90% mark, they get a series of continuous skill checks until the generator's completed, right? So if you're using potential energy at the 90% mark, you'll get skill checks for probably like 30-40 seconds straight. But yeah, on Doctor, this is an insane perk. On everybody else, it's really kind of a joke to hit these skill checks. For newer players, they're definitely going to struggle. But I've hit these skill checks while I was in Madness from Doctor, getting backwards skill checks and skill checks appearing everywhere. It's not really that hard. But if they do miss a skill check, the generator's blocked for 20 seconds. So, I mean, that's solid. But I would rather have, you know, the whole slowdown from the first hook, 3%, that's adding like probably 3 or 4 seconds to each gen, or probably like 2 seconds, and then the next hook 6 seconds, you know. This is just like a last ditch effort type thing. So yeah, that one's from the Onryo as well. Then we got Deadlock. This is from Cenobite. This is an S tier perk for sure. Super self-explanatory, don't need to really go that far into it. Anytime a generator pops, the next generator with the most progress is blocked for 25 seconds. Super great. I mean, that's all super passive. That's why it's up there so high. 25 seconds is good blockage, and it gives you information where the survivors are currently working on. Then we got Surge. Surge is pretty solid. I'll put it at the top of B. I almost want to put it at A, but there's a lot of killers who M2 now and get downs with M2s that can't use Surge. So the fact that it's limited to a basic attack and M1 kind of holds it back in my opinion. The good thing about it is it can affect multiple generators, so it's insane on indoor maps. It's absolutely awful on outdoor maps in my opinion. It's kind of like a mini version of Hex Ruin because the benefit to it is you don't have to kick gens, and the gen loses 8% instead of 5% instantly. Yeah, pretty solid. That's from Demogorgon. Then we got Oppression from the Twins. I put this one A tier. If I did use gen kicking and regression perks, which I don't because I use full aura since I'm a Huntress main. If I was to use gen kicking perks, Oppression would definitely be up there now. This is basically a better version of Ruin and a better version of Surge in my opinion. You kick a generator, and the other 3 gens with the most progress on them will receive a difficult skill check if the survivor's working on them, or if they're not working on them, they'll start regressing. So, I mean, that's pretty solid. You know, you hook a survivor, you down another survivor, you kick the generators, and then, or you kick the generator, then 4 generators are regressing at a single time, while you got 2 survivors who are, maybe one sticking to a gen, but at least one other one's going to grab a save while you're hooking the other one. Really great perk. I feel like it's very heavily slept on, and now that it's not 80 seconds anymore, it's 45. I think it's way better, way better. Up next, another one from Cenobite. We got Scorch Hook, Gift of Pain. I don't really know how to feel about this one. We'll put it in B for now. So basically, whenever you hook a survivor on a Scorch Hook, they're 16% slower at everything when they get unhooked, and they're mangled and hemorrhaging for 90 seconds. Honestly, the mangled and hemorrhaging should be until they're healed because it's a Scorch Hook. This is a perk related mangled and hemorrhage, but that's besides the point. So they'll be 16% slower at repairing, cleansing, healing, and all that stuff. The next time you injure them though, the effect goes away, but you can literally just down them and hook them again and the effect is back on. 16% is pretty solid, you know what I mean? That's like what, the equivalent of 6 hooks with Dying Light, so you know, it's solid. I honestly have probably only used it 3 or 4 times. I'll probably have to make a video on it and see how I really feel about it, but we'll just put it here for now. Up next, we got Pentimento from the Artist. This one's a tough one. This is really tough for a couple of reasons. Do I put it in S tier? Alright, so hear me out. Pentimento, whenever a Hex Totem or a Dull Totem is cleansed and broken, you can rekindle it. And generators for the first stack of Pentimento are 30% slower. Now, this is huge. This is S tier alone. But you know, you have to bring other Hex perks because survivors generally don't just cleanse Dull Totems, so you pretty much have to bring other Hex perks. The more Hex perks you bring, the better this does. Man, we'll just put it in S tier. We'll put it in S tier. And I definitely think it's better than Deadlock. I also think it's better than Pain Res, honestly. And if you use Pentimento with like 2 other Hex perks and Pain Res or Surge or Ruin, it's even more brutal. Because Pentimento at its first stack makes generators go from 90 seconds to 124. So 2-minute gens, which is insane. I've had one match where I've ran this perk where the survivors memorized right where their totems were because I was using it in tandem with Hex Plaything. They immediately remembered where it was and got rid of it instantly. So I had Pentimento up for maybe like a combined total of 45 seconds the whole game. And at that point, this perk got completely shut down. But even then, 14 seconds to cleanse the totem. So, you know, it still bought me a minute of time for 4 totems basically. But yeah, definitely a great perk. The only thing that was gonna have me put it in A is the fact that it's a Hex perk, but I think it's just so good. It's so good. It has to be used with other Hex perks, otherwise it's like D tier. All right, then we got Overcharge from Doctor. So whenever you kick your generator, it'll be trapped, and whenever a survivor hops on it, they'll receive a difficult skill check, the really small skill check. And if they miss that skill check, it regresses by an additional 4%. So you kick a generator, they miss a skill check. Instead of losing 10% progress, they lose 14% progress. And then the generator starts regressing at 85%, so where's the normal? And then it builds all the way up to 125% on top of that over 30 seconds, which is also absolutely awful. The main drive of this is the difficult skill check they'll receive, because if they do miss that skill check, then they lose like, you know, 10 seconds worth of progress on a generator, 9 seconds. And also it doesn't consume a gen regression state since you're only limited to 8 of those. Kicking the generator does, but then missing a skill check doesn't consume any at all. All right, so we got Corrupted Invention. This is from the Plague. Is it S or A? Whenever the game starts, The 3 furthest away generators are blocked for 2 minutes straight. If you down a survivor, the blocking ends immediately. So say you're playing as Billy and you spawn in with Lethal Pursuer, you cross map insta down somebody with a chainsaw 9 seconds into the match. The perk almost did nothing. I mean, it did a little something, but it's not that great. Back in the day when I first started playing, this blocked 2 minutes no matter what, and there were times where I downed 3 survivors and this was still blocking 3 generators, which was crazy. I'll put it at A tier, honestly. I don't know. I think I might be biased because I'm a Huntress main and sometimes I get downs very, very quickly, but even then, it still does its work as long as you're not getting a down literally in the first 10 seconds of the match, because survivors are at the strongest in the beginning and this perk kind of throws that back in your favor. Alright, we got Dead Man switch from Death Slinger. This just got a change, so now it's the first gen that's let go of his blocks for 50 seconds. This can be countered super heavily by a survivor tapping a generator that's not being worked on at all, but I mean, it is 50 seconds of blocking that generator. You could combine it with Pain Res to block the most progress gen for 50 seconds, which is kind of insane, which we'll probably have to try in a video. It has good potential. It definitely has good potential. We'll put it in A tier. It's definitely going to be much better on range killers who can zone people off generators and very fast killers who can do the same. But yeah, we'll put it in A because 50 seconds is kind of crazy. Next we got Pop Goes the Weasel from Clown. Oh man, this perk got gutted. It used to be 30% of the total progress on a generator. Now it's 20%. So basically you hook a survivor, you have 45 seconds to use it. It takes 20% progress off the generator, however much it has. So if you kick a generator, that's at 10%, 5% for the kick, 2%, because 2% of 10%, so it'll be 7 in total. He just got gutted so hard. It's still one of the best. I think we're kind of in the gen blocking meta, honestly. Gen blocking and gen slowdown over straight regression, honestly. So yeah, we'll put it at A. Up next, we got Eruption. Oh man, where do we put Eruption? I'm not a big fan of this. That's from Nemesis, by the way. I'm not a big fan of Eruption because it takes 2 regression events. So you kick the generator, that's 1 regression event, and you down a survivor by any means, which is cool, so you can M2 down somebody, and the generator that you kicked explodes for 10%. So that's 15% lost off the generator, which is pretty solid. And if a survivor's working on the gen when it explodes, their aura is revealed for 12 seconds, but it takes 2 regression events. So you can kick a generator with Eruption 3 times. No. Yeah, 3 times, and then you can kick it 1 more time and it'll be completely blocked, right? And then you can't regress it at all anymore, which is very unfortunate. I'm actually gonna put it above Merciless Storm. I like it better than Merciless. And Overcharge. I like Dying Light better though. Alright, up next, in our first D tier perk is actually Hex Huntress's Lullaby. And this hurts me to say this because this is from Pookie, but unfortunately she has some of the worst perks in the game, especially after Wraiths got buffed. So Hex Huntress's Lullaby, anytime a survivor misses a skill check, they lose 16% off the generator instead of 10, which is nice. It starts lit immediately with 0 tokens. It's a 5 token Hex perk, and much worse than Devour Hope. For some reason, it has a 5 token requirement. Anytime you get a token, the timing between the audible skill check warning and the actual skill check appearing is like 15% more delayed. So, you know, usually you get a skill check, warning, a second later skill check appears. 1 token, like 0.5 seconds, blah, 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 blah. So 5 tokens, they get no warning at all. The skill check just appears. And it's supposed to make survivors miss skill checks. It doesn't. Almost nobody misses this. I was making that video, Huntress Lullaby, or fixing Huntress's Lullaby, and it took me like 20 matches to get that video. I played several matches where they didn't miss a single skill check at all. Some were at full tokens, some were at 3 tokens. And yeah, it's just, survivors just don't miss skill checks, so that's why it's so low, honestly. Up next, we got Thrilling Tremors from Ghostface. Anytime you pick up a survivor from the dying state, you put them on your shoulders, all generators not being worked on are blocked for 16 seconds. So, you know, you pick up 10 survivors, 12 hooks, you know, 10 survivors, that's 160 seconds of generators being blocked. More along the lines of an info perk because the gens that are being worked on won't be blocked. So it'll tell you what gens are being worked on. So you could combine this with Pop Goes the Weasel for a pretty solid, you know, idea of where to place your Pop Goes the Weasel. You know, you pick up the survivor, 6 gens are blocked, 1's unblocked, and you're like, okay, I know to take my pop there. You know what I mean? So yeah, pretty solid. And that's really Ghostface's best perk. Next, we got Hex Ruin from the Hag. So basically, whenever a survivor lets go of a generator, the generator begins regressing immediately. Now, the benefit to this is at 100%, so just the normal speed. So it used to be 200%. This perk was actually worthy of being a Hex perk. It was the meta staple pick for like 5 years straight. Then it got gutted to 100%. The main benefit to this, in my eyes anymore, is the fact that you don't have to kick the generator. So, you know, you run up to a survivor working on a generator. Ooh, that's kind of got a lot of progress on it. Do I kick it or do I chase the survivor? Ruin does that for you. It takes care of it. You just continue chasing the survivor. So it is very good in that regard because I really value that utility to it. The downside to it is it's a Hex perk. It can be cleansed immediately, and it's just not that much of a threat. Survivors most likely nowadays just work through it. Used to in the past, when it was at 200%, survivors would kind of try to find it and try to get rid of it so they didn't have to worry about it at all. So, yeah. Up next, we actually got to create a special category for this one. This is our last one, actually, isn't it? So this perk came with the Unknown. I really like the naming scheme. His name's the Unknown. They did Undone, Unforeseen, and Unbound. Almost all of his perks are trash. This one being the worst. So anytime a survivor misses a skill check, you get 3 tokens. And basically, you can cap out at 30 tokens, and whenever you kick a generator, however many tokens you have, the generator will regress and be blocked for that long. So it sounds insane. You know, you get 15 tokens, you kick the generator loses a straight 15%, not of the total progress, just straight 15% on top of your base 5% kick, and then it's blocked for 15 seconds. The problem is you get tokens by survivors missing skill checks, and survivors do not miss skill checks. They really don't. I played Doctor with Distressing, Colorophobia, Huntress's Lullaby in an effort to get survivors to miss skill checks, and dude, they missed I think 3 skill checks that whole game. Colorophobia makes their skill check cursor 50% faster. It also makes their healing 50% slower. Leverage makes it 50% slower. So these guys are spending 60 seconds hitting skill checks in these fast-ass skill checks, and they're just not missing. They're just not missing at all. So I don't think I've ever got it to 30 tokens ever, even when playing a Doctor, or even when playing Doctor and really trying to force the 30 tokens. It just doesn't happen. It needs a rework bad. It is hands down the worst gen regression blocking perk in the game, uncontested. Oh, whoa, wait. I forgot. We got a couple more. We got Hex Wretched Fate. I forgot. This one's from Drac. Anytime a generator, or the first time a generator is completed, the obsession gets cursed, and they're 33% slower at gens, which is kind of insane, because it's like, they basically have to go find this totem, because you know what I mean? You can't, that's 2-minute gens. You can't really just sit through that. So one survivor is going to be obsolete until they find this. And then if you combine this with Undying, they're going to be obsolete for even longer. This is really solid. It's tied to one survivor, but it makes that survivor obsolete for its duration. Oh man, it is a hex perk, but it doesn't light up as a hex perk until it's active. We're going to go ahead and put it at A tier. And then we got Grim Embrace from the artist. I'll put it right here. So basically, anytime you hook a survivor and move 16 meters away from the hook, all gens are blocked for 10 seconds. So 7 gens blocked for 10 seconds. This happens up to 4 times, 1 time per unique survivor. Once you hook the 4th survivor, all gens will be blocked for 50 seconds, and you'll see the Obsession's aura for 6 seconds. Obviously, if you hook the Obsession last, you're going to see their aura while they're hanging on a hook. It's not going to do you much good there. I feel like it could have been reworked better because it did get a buff. I think they could have just left it how it was in the past and then made it to where you could use it twice. 50 seconds is a decent amount of time. You know, that's basically a whole straight minute of survivors not being able to work on gens. But if you got a lot of survivors injured, they're just going to hide and reset. And you could actually lose a lot of pressure doing that instead of catching survivors getting greedy, committing to gens. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not the best in my opinion. All right, so that was the gen blocking and gen regression perk tier list. I honestly might just do all the rest of these in their own video. Because, I mean, you could just categorize so many of these in so many ways, like, you know, slowdown perks, stealth perks, anti-heal perks, chase perks. You know, there's just so many options, so we'll probably just do a miscellaneous category right at the end, you know. But this is the gen perk tier list, so yeah, the slowdown, gen blocking, and gen regression perk tier list. All right, so that does it for this one. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree or disagree, and where would you put some of these perks? But yeah, that does it for this one. That was a long one, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.